Have you been to Skagway, Alaska? If not, you're going to want to watch this video because I show you a lot of the historical things there are to see and do in Skagway, and there are a lot of them. And at the very end of the video, you actually get to see a madam taking care of her clients. You'll want to watch that. If we're meeting for the first time, my name's Ken Edmonds, and on this channel I provide information to help people that travel with challenges, travel better, avoid the pitfalls, and I share information for their friends and their families. So we're going to start our tour today at the National Park Service Visitor Center, which is on the corner of 2nd Avenue and Broadway. And that's a good place to start a walking tour of town. One of the reasons this is such a good place to start your tour is they have free maps available here. And in addition, you can get a free tour, walking tour of town. Nice thing about that tour is it's about 4 blocks. It's handicap accessible. It's service dog accessible. So it's just a great place to start. As we look at the building from the other side, now we were looking at it from Broadway, now we're looking at it from 2nd Avenue. And you can see that on the right side we had it was the entrance, and it's where the reception is and where you get your tour set up. There's a theater in there where you can watch videos. They do video presentations. So that's a good place to start. The building that you see on the left side of that is part of the museum. It's connected on the First Street side. A couple of things to think about when you're planning your trip is, first of all, make reservations online in advance, because these tours are pretty popular. If you're in town on a cruise ship, they could fill up very easy. Usually you have a couple of different kinds of tours during the day, and right now at least the tours depart on the hour. So what I would suggest is go online, make your reservation for your tour before you get to town. You might be able to get a tour if you're in town, but the odds don't favor that. I would encourage you to get there before your tour starts to allow yourself enough time to look at the museum. They show videos about the gold rush. What I would suggest is that you check the schedule and then try to make sure that you get a chance to see the video, have time to look at the museum, and then go on the tour with the ranger. It makes for a good couple of hours of time, and you'll learn a lot about Skagway, which has a very interesting history. So I encourage you to buy out some time for that. Our next stop is going to be across the street at the Red Onion. We'll take a look at this. This is an interesting building. This building wasn't there originally. They moved it there, and in the process of moving it, they put it on the lot backwards, so that the rear entrance was what faced the street. They didn't like that, so they cut the ends off the building and swapped the entrances around so that the front entrance was on Broadway and the rear entrance was at the back where it belonged. It has quite a storied past. It is a saloon and serves food now, so you get some historic sense there. And if you go upstairs, they had a bordello, and you can get a $10 quickie if you want one. That is a quick tour of the bordello with one of the madams. She'll take you around and explain all about the building. You'll see where they swap the ends, all of those kinds of things. We're going to just take a little walk about a half a block down 2nd Street here, and we'll take a look at another very interesting building. This was Jeff Smith's parlor. It's a building that's full of history. It is a museum that's operated by the National Park Service. There'll be a ranger there to conduct tours. This building had kind of been run down. In fact, I found a picture when it was really run down. It's been completely restored by the National Park Service. Makes quite an interesting museum. And Jeff Soapy Smith was quite a character in town. Do me a favor, if you're enjoying the video, please hit the like button. We're going to move up Broadway a little ways, and as you look on the left about the fourth building up from the Red Onion Saloon, you're going to see a building with the initials AB on the outside of it, and that stands for Arctic Brotherhood. This was a fraternal organization for miners. It was founded back in 1899. It spread kind of all over that part of the world during the gold rush, and it's kind of faded out. That building today is used by the Skagway Visitors Bureau, and so again, a good place to stop in, a great resource if you're trying to find some more information about town. Interesting fact about the outside, the facade of it is made up of over 8,800 pieces of driftwood. Most of them are original. They had to replace a few because of damage just due to neglect over the years. But anyway, it's probably one of the more unique buildings from the front you'll see. The next building we're going to talk about is the Golden North Hotel. It's just up the street a little bit farther from the Arctic Brotherhood on the same side. And it's a building that has a interesting history. Like many of the buildings in Skagway, where it is sitting today is not where it was originally built. Additionally, it was not originally built as a hotel. It started out as a two-story building that was for the Klondike Trading Company. And it was originally built on the southeast corner of 4th Avenue and State Street. A little bit later, it wound up at 3rd Avenue and State Street, and then in 1908, there were a couple of gentlemen bought the building, and they moved it from 3rd and State to 3rd and Broadway, and it became then the Golden North Hotel. It's interesting that originally it was a two-story building. After it was purchased and moved, they added a 3rd floor and added the dome to it to make it its distinctive shape today. No longer serves as a hotel, but it is used, the bottom floor in particular, as houses a variety of shops. If you're enjoying the content, you'll want to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you'll get notified about the next one. Across the street from the Golden North Hotel is what's called the Mascot Block, and in particular we'll talk about the Mascot Saloon. It was one of the longest running saloons in Skagway. It started operation in 1898, and it continued operation until local prohibition shut it down in 1916. After that, it was used for a couple of other different kinds of businesses. When the National Park Service acquired the building, they then renovated it back to its turn-of-the-century appearance, made it as authentic as possible with what you find behind the bars, and it serves as a local museum that's well worth the tour. As we continue up Broadway, we get to 4th Avenue. On the corner of Broadway and 4th Avenue, there's a 3-story building. It's called the Pack Train Building. And it's, again, one of those buildings that was built somewhere else and got moved. In fact, all 3 buildings on that block date from 1900, but they were located somewhere else. They were a part of Camp Skagway, which was located 2 blocks up Broadway on 6th Avenue. They were moved down. The military used them until about 1904, and then they moved down to that corner. If we go right on 4th Avenue, on the left side you'll see this building that's kind of run down, and this is the old St. James Hotel. It was one of the early hotels in Skagway, and there's a unique piece of history associated with it, because this was where the White Pass and Yukon Route Railway got its start. There was a British gentleman with some cash to invest and an ambitious engineer, and they sat down and worked out an agreement in that hotel that led to the creation of the White Pass and Yukon Route Railway. Across the street from the St. James Hotel, still on 4th Avenue, is another building that's kind of unique. This was the original customs house in Skagway. It was built by the railroad. Obviously, it's no longer being used as such today, but that's where the customs house was originally. And Continuing down 4th Avenue, we'll get to Spring Street. We'll make a left on the Spring, go up to 5th Avenue, make a left turn, and we're going to wind up in front of the Moore homestead. And this consists of two buildings. The one on the left is the original Moore cabin. When Captain Moore founded what would become the White Pass Trail, he decided to stake a claim of 160 acres there in the valley before you got to the trail. And the building on the left is the original cabin he built. Both these buildings are operated by the National Park Service, and you can tour both of them. The Moore cabin itself is a classic old-time log cabin. You have the opportunity to go in and take a look at it. It's just one big room. And then the building on the right is the Moore house. And after living in the cabin for a while, they decided they wanted more space, and so they built that house. And it was in the family for years. Then it now is owned by the Park Service. Continuing up 5th Avenue, making a right back on Broadway, we'll come into a couple of interesting buildings. First of all, we'll run into the Goldberg Cigar Store. This structure may be one of the ones that's moved more in town than pretty much anywhere else. The National Park Service has moved it several times. It was moved several times before the Park Service acquired it. But it was one of the older buildings in Skagway. There's photos of it dating back to 1897, basically when Skagway was just getting started. And it's now part of a museum that features the women in the gold rush. So again, another place that's worth a stop, take a look at. And just a little bit farther up Broadway on that same block, we find Eagles Hall. And Eagles Hall is an interesting building. Again, like so many buildings, it's not where it originally started, and it wasn't originally a single building. It was two separate buildings. But it was combined together, and it's now a theater that hosts the longest running theater production, the Days of '98 show. That dates back to 1923. It started out as a fundraiser, and it's been ongoing ever since. It is one of those things that is not free in town. There's not very many of them. Admission is $20. You'll typically find some dancers and some of the characters out trying to talk people into coming into the show. I haven't had the opportunity to see it yet. That's on my list for the next time, but it has a great reputation. So the question of the day, have you been to Skagway? Do me a favor, put the comments down below. Going right on 6th Avenue and about a half block down, you run into a interesting park. And by the way, it does have handicap facilities. It's accessible restrooms. So for those that have need of accessible facility, there's some there. And there's quite a few around town. I'll try to mention some of the others later. But Molly Walsh came from Montana, came up at the start of the gold rush, and she spent some time there working as a waitress, and she was involved with the Union Church and humanitarian activities. However, she wound up crosswise with Soapy Smith, and so she moved up the White Pass Trail to post at Log Cabin, and she put up a grub tent, basically started a restaurant. And she was quite the darling of people, and a single young lady in that area obviously attracted lots of suitors. She had two of them that in particular stood out. One was Mike Bartlett, the other was Jack Newman. She wound up marrying Mike Bartlett, and that marriage was a little bit rocky, and some years later in Seattle he shot and killed her. But she had made such a impact on Jack Newman that he had a bust made of Molly Walsh, and it's installed here in the park, and there's a information board that explains the story. Needless to say, that did not set well with his wife, so the result was that he had to get a bust made of his wife, and it's in a park in Seattle. If we go down back to Broadway and go up to 7th Avenue and go down 7th Avenue, And the reason we're going to go this way is because it's all paved. You can go down Spring Street, but in this area it's not completely paved. So for those that travel with a wheelchair, it's much easier to go back up to Broadway and go down to 7th Street. And as you go down 7th Street, straight ahead, you're going to see, and this is the Skagway City Hall, and the Skagway Museum is located there as well. It was originally McCabe College and was that way for numerous years. It fell on hard times. The building wound up being empty for a while and was acquired by the city to serve as City Hall and as the museum. And then off to the right of that, as you're approaching it, you'll see a stone chimney. And that stone chimney is all that's left of Pullen House, which was one of, at least at one point in time, was one of Alaska's most famous hotels. It was run by Harriet Mall Pullen. She got there in 1897, and she operated that hotel till she died in 1947. It continued operation for a few more years, and then basically was abandoned, and now all that's left is that stone chimney. In the picture, you'll see it sitting right behind that piece of equipment. As I promised at the start of the video, you are going to see in this picture a madam taking care of her clients. Now, probably not what you thought, but this madam works out of the Red Onion, and they offer tours of town. So when you're starting out, if you don't want to take the free tour, you can make arrangements at the Red Onion Saloon. Again, it's one of those things I do in advance, but you can have the opportunity to follow a madam all around town as she shows you all the sights. If we go back down Broadway past the Visitor Center, the first thing that you come to after the Visitor Center is this rotary snowplow. This is rotary snowplow number 1, and it's what they use to clear snow off of the tracks on the White Pass Railway. It's retired now, and its home is in the park. Past the rotary snowplow, we run into Centennial Park, and this was obviously, as the name suggests, set up to celebrate the centennial of the gold rush. In the center, there's a sculpture that shows a Klondike guide and a prospector getting ready to head up a White's Pass. This makes a good place to end our tour of Skagway. Hope you enjoyed the video today. There's going to be a link pop up that'll take you to another video on Skagway. You'll want to see it. We'll see you next time.